Welcome to the AEN Stories channel.
I turned 41 the year my house learned how to go quiet in a new way, the kind of quiet that isn't rest, just the absence of what you thought was there. It didn't happen in a single fight or a slammed door. It arrived one Tuesday in late spring when nothing was supposed to change, and then everything did. My name is Tom. I manage a small crew at a commercial HVAC outfit, rooftops, thermostats, problems people only notice when the room is the wrong temperature. I married Rebecca when we were 25 and certain. We had our daughter, Hannah, at 28, and I discovered the version of love that wakes you up at 3 a.m. because a nightlight burned out and you're suddenly an electrician for feelings. Rebecca's sister, Claire, moved in with us last year after her divorce. She arrived with 3 boxes, a coffee maker that actually worked, and an apology she kept offering to the air. She slept in the guest room and paid for the streaming services we'd been mooching off my cousin. She offered to do school runs when my call-outs ran late. She folded laundry like it was a peace treaty. She said she'd stay just until she figured things out, which turned into months the way couches turn into temporary beds. I liked having her around. Claire is a person who believes every problem can be made smaller by a walk. She took Hannah for walks after dinner and listened to her talk about algebra and kids at school with too much perfume. They made brownies at 10 p.m. Conspirators against bedtime. They watched old sitcoms in the living room with the kind of laughter that made me believe our house was doing its job. We weren't in a bad place, Rebecca and me. We were in an accurate place. The calendar had more colors than the sunset. We had a rotation for dinners and a budget app we didn't quite obey. We had a rule about phones at the table that we mostly kept. We had little fights about nothing and big silences about nothing larger. We had a marriage that worked, until I found out it didn't, and then I had to rewrite the definition of worked. The night it started for me, anyway, was a Thursday. I came home late, sweaty and honest, with a bag of takeout that had leaked soy sauce on the seat. Claire was at the sink, rinsing greens in that aggressive way people do when they've decided the lettuce is the problem. Rebecca was upstairs, shower running. Hannah sat at the kitchen island doing homework and humming a song I didn't recognize, which is how I know I'm old. "Hey, kid," I said, kissing the top of her head. "That math look like English yet?" "It looks like crime," she said without looking up. "Punishable by detention." Claire smiled and handed me a dish towel. "Save your hero speech for the quadratic formula," she said. "Dinner's almost ready." Rebecca came down in leggings and my old college sweatshirt, bare-faced, hair damp. She looked like the woman from the photos on our stairs, the ones where we're thinner and more certain. She kissed me quick and said, "We're eating early. I promised Mom and Dad we'd call at 7. Her parents FaceTime every Thursday. They are the kind of grandparents who believe consistency is the spine of a family, and I've never had the heart to tell them we're bendier than they think. We ate. We washed dishes. Hannah went to finish a project on inner planets. I went to the garage to check the air filter like a man who wants a task that can be solved by rotation. When I came back, Claire and Rebecca were in the dining room, voices low. I didn't mean to hear. That matters to me, still. I stepped into the hall and stopped because I heard my name, half a syllable, the sound a person makes when they're trying to fit too much pain into a whisper. "I can't do it anymore," Rebecca said. "The lying. The pretending. Every time I say I'm working late, I feel like I'm making a small hole in the floor." Claire's voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Then don't," she said. "Tell him." "I can't," Rebecca said immediately, and the speed of it told me everything I didn't want to know. "Hannah. Mom and Dad. Your room in our house. I can't set fire to everything. I'll end it. I swear. Again." The word again landed like a screw in my shoe. I stood there, a man learning that his house had other blueprints. I didn't walk in. I backed away down the hall like a person evading an animal you don't want to spook. I went outside and stood on the deck and stared at the neighbor's fence like it might tell me who I was. The air smelled like grass and a grill someone else had the energy to light. I counted to 100. It didn't fix me. It did keep me from walking into the dining room and turning the table over. I told myself a story that night: she's unhappy, she's talking to someone, it's emotional, It can be repaired, there is no one else. We all tell ourselves stories to buy time. Sometimes the bill comes due in a voice that belongs to your child. 3 days later, on a Sunday afternoon shaped like laundry in Costco, Hannah found me in the garage, where I was losing a fight with a tangle of extension cords. She closed the door behind her like she didn't want the world to hear her being brave. "Dad," she said, and I knew from the way she said it that we were leaving the world where homework was the biggest problem. "I need to ask you something." "Shoot," I said, because men say shoot when they're afraid the question is a bullet. "If someone knows something bad," she said, words lined up carefully, "and they don't tell because they're trying to protect someone else, is that still lying?" I looked at her. My daughter's face holds both of us, Rebecca's eyes, my mouth, a chin that belongs to nobody but herself. I sat on the step. She sat next to me, knees pressed together, hands in the sleeves of her sweatshirt. "What's the something?" I asked softly. She swallowed. I heard Mom and Aunt Clara talking. A breath. Mom's seeing someone. She didn't cry. She did something worse. She looked at me to see if I'd try to make it not true. I wanted to say 100 helpful things that would have hurt her. I wanted to say it's complicated and grown-ups go through things and your mother loves you. Instead I told her the one thing I could say without lying. "I'm so sorry you had to carry that alone," I said. "Thank you for telling me." She nodded, relief and guilt wrestling in the small muscles around her eyes. "I told Aunt Claire she had to tell you," she said. "She said she would. She said she didn't want to break our family. I said it's already broken if I have to keep secrets from my dad." That's the sentence that split me open. Not the affair. Not the word someone. The fact that my kid had to use adult grammar to keep herself whole. "Okay," I said, and put my arm around her. "Okay." We sat there a long time with the smell of detergent and motor oil and the sound of a neighbor's leaf blower insisting on a Sunday. When we stood, she wiped her eyes with the heel of her palm and said, "Don't be mean to Aunt Claire. She's trying." I promised. She let me. Claire asked to talk that night. She said it at dinner like she was handing me a package that might explode. "After we eat?" she said to the room, but meant me. Rebecca nodded too quickly, then slowed the nod like she could make it normal. We cleaned up. My hands were steadier than my heart. Claire's were shaking. We sat in the living room, me in the armchair by the window because I wanted an exit if I needed one, Rebecca on the far end of the couch with a pillow on her lap like armor, Claire on the ottoman, knees toward me, back straight like she was in court. My in-laws were due any minute for Sunday dessert. Timing is one of those things that makes you believe in fate, or comedy. Claire started the way Claire starts everything, with an apology. "I'm sorry," she said. "Not for telling you. For not telling you sooner." She looked at Rebecca, then at me. I saw something I didn't want to see. She swallowed. I kept it because I told myself protecting Hannah meant holding my breath and waiting for it to pass. "She hurt us. She told me to tell you." She was right. Rebecca's mother and father arrived then, ringing the bell like they always do even though they have a key. We let them in. They brought a pie in the confidence of people who know where the plates lie. We sat them down and poured coffee and then I said, "We're having a family conversation." My voice was too calm. Rebecca's mother's eyes lit with the small thrill of a person who likes a plot as long as it resolves in the third act. Claire took a breath. "Rebecca has been seeing someone." Silence is a living thing in a room. It grows in corners and under chairs. It curls around ankles and climbs. Rebecca's mother made a sound like a tea kettle finding boil. Her father closed his eyes like a man seeing the answer to a question he didn't want asked. Rebecca stared at her hands. "How could you?" her mother said, but she said it to Claire. "How could you betray your sister like this?" Claire flinched. Then she did the bravest thing I've seen an adult do in my house. She didn't apologize for the wrong thing. "I couldn't betray Hannah," she said, voice steadying in the middle. "She hurt us. She asked me to tell the truth. I told myself I was protecting everyone by staying quiet. I was protecting Rebecca. Not the family." Rebecca's father looked at me. He has never loved me loudly, but he has shaken my hand like a pact since the day we signed the mortgage. He nodded, and it felt like permission to breathe. "Tom," he said quietly. "I'm sorry." Rebecca finally spoke. "I'm sorry," she said too, but to the room, not to anyone in particular. "It was stupid." She laughed once, a sharp sound. Not an excuse. A category. She looked at me. "It's over." "How long?" I asked, because men ask numbers when we don't know how to hold shapes. "Months," she said. "Not a year." "Who?" I asked, because I couldn't stop myself. "It doesn't matter," she said quickly. "It does," I said, and surprised myself with how calm my voice sounded. "It matters that it's someone who might walk past our house and wave." Rebecca's mother glared at me like I had picked the wrong target in a shooting gallery. "This is not the time for interrogation," she said. "Your wife is hurting." "So am I," I said, and it came out without heat. "So is Hannah." That's when Hannah walked in. We didn't call her. Kids know where the loudest quiet is. She stood in the doorway, hair in a messy bun, socks mismatched, face set in the new way I learned to fear. She looked at me first. I nodded. She looked at Rebecca. "I asked Aunt Claire to tell," she said. "I asked because I didn't want to lie to Dad." Rebecca's eyes filled and spilled. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Hannah didn't cry. She took a step forward and then stopped, like she'd reached a line she'd drawn herself. "I'm mad at you," she said, her voice steady and small at the same time. "I'm mad that you made me be the grown-up." She looked at Claire. "Thank you," she said, and it almost broke me, hearing my kid thank someone for honesty like it was a gift. Rebecca's mother sputtered. "You see what you've done," she said to Claire. "You've turned daughter against mother. You could have protected us." Rebecca's father put a hand on his wife's arm. "Enough," he said, not loud, but final. He looked at Hannah. "You did the right thing," he told her. He looked at Claire. "You too." He looked at me. "You have my help." He looked at his daughter last. "You have my love. Not my defense." We didn't throw anyone out. We didn't let anyone stay too long, either. Rebecca's parents left with their pie and the knowledge that their stories about our family would need new chapters they didn't want to write. Hannah went to her room and pretended to read and actually stared at the same page for an hour. Claire went upstairs and closed her door gently like an apology. Rebecca and I sat on the couch like people on a bus that has stopped between stations. "I ended it," she said again, as if tense could save us. "Before today." "You didn't end the part where Hannah heard you," I said. "You didn't end the part where Claire had to decide who to betray." She nodded. "I know. We made the calls you make when your life needs supervision. A family counselor. A lawyer, not because we were certain we'd need one, but because certainty was not an item in stock. I slept in the guest room that week. Claire took the sofa. Rebecca slept in our bed alone. The house sounded different, air vents, the fridge motor, Hannah's shower, each noise louder without the muffle of a rhythm we'd trained ourselves to trust. At counseling, we sat in a room with beige chairs and a plant that had to be fake at this point. The therapist was a woman in her 50s with kind hands in the face of someone who has seen every version of this story and still thinks it's worth telling again. She asked questions. Rebecca talked about loneliness and being 40 with a calendar that felt like a report card. I talked about work and how tired burrows into a marriage like a tick. We both talked about Hannah. The therapist said repair 3 times and boundaries twice and trauma once, drawing a triangle that made me want to set fire to the dry erase board. Still, the act of saying it out loud to a stranger who was paid to listen helped. Hannah saw someone too. The counselor told us she was doing expected anger. Expected anger looks like a kid who makes her bed without being asked and also doesn't say goodnight to her mother. It looks like a girl who throws herself into soccer practice and then hides in the bathroom after, phone in hand, texting friends who reply with hearts and knives and the word "uck" spelled 3 different ways. It looks like a teenager who sits next to her aunt on the couch and leans until the weight transfers. Claire packed boxes after a week. Not because we asked. Because she thought my house would breathe easier if it had fewer edges. I told her to stay. She said, "You need to figure out if the guest room is a holding pattern or a plan." She hugged Hannah and told her she would be over Tuesday for lasagna night because being steady is love in practical shoes. She hugged me and said, "I'm sorry the truth came this way." I told her the truth only knows one way. She laughed with her eyes and left her good coffee maker on the counter by accident. Rebecca's mother stopped calling me. She called Hannah, which we shut down in one text that made me feel like a bouncer at a decent bar. Rebecca's father came over twice to fix a cabinet door and once just to sit on the deck with me and talk about how early tomatoes died this year. He told me a story about his own father's silence that felt like a secret he'd been waiting to hand to someone who would recognize its shape. I shook his hand when he left, and he held on a second longer than usual. Rebecca told me the name 3 weeks later, because I asked in a way she couldn't dodge. A guy from her gym. Not a neighbor. Not a friend. Not married. He lived across town. I didn't feel better. I felt more accurate. I didn't contact him. I wanted to. I drafted a message that read like a man who'd watched too many movies about closure. I deleted it. He didn't live in my house. He wasn't the one Hannah needed to watch do hard things. We made rules. No more private spaces that had names. No more "I'll be late" with no nouns attached. No more asking Hannah to read the room when adults should do the reading. We tried to be kind in the mornings and honest at night. We fought in therapy and used "I feel" sentences like people who had been taught to do a new sport. We said thank you for small things on purpose. We said "I'm sorry" without essays attached. We checked in with Claire, who sent back pictures of her new place with plants and a rug that made a room look braver than it felt. Hannah started talking to Rebecca again in increments, first about homework, then about a show, then about how much it sucked that the library cut their hours. The first time she laughed at something Rebecca said, "I had to go to the garage and pretend to sort nails." You don't realize how much of your heart is held together by the sound of your kid forgiving someone until it returns like a song you thought you'd lost the lyrics to. We are not over it. That's not the kind of story this is. We are inside it, and some days the walls feel closer than others. Some nights I sleep in our bed, some nights I don't. Some mornings I make pancakes, some mornings I eat cereal over the sink like a man who can't be trusted with heat. I still love Rebecca. I also love the version of me that Hannah believed in when she told me the truth. I am trying to be both people in one body. It feels like lifting something too heavy in good form. On a Saturday in September, we drove to a field for Hannah's soccer game and pretended suburban normal is a cure. Claire showed up with folding chairs and orange slices because she is incapable of watching a child do anything without citrus. Rebecca sat between us, elbows tucked, eyes on the field. A dad next to me yelled at a ref like the ref had stolen his car. Hannah scored a goal off a rebound and didn't look at the bleachers. After, she walked over and let Rebecca hug her for a second longer than necessary. She leaned on Claire for a second longer than that. She fist bumped me and said, "We're getting tacos," like a commandment. We went. We ate in a booth with red vinyl that stuck to our legs and didn't talk about therapy or rules. We talked about a teacher who mispronounces Hannah's name with confidence. We talked about Claire's new neighbor who owns a parrot that screams at podcasts. We talked about nothing important and everything that matters when you're waiting for a house to relearn its own quiet. People ask if I'm angry at Claire. I was, at first, for being the person who pushed the truth into the room. Anger is a lazy costume for grief. It fits fast. It doesn't hold up. I'm grateful now. She chose Hannah over an easier week. She chose me over convenience. She chose the version of our family that might survive over the one that would have performed itself into a fall. We still see Rebecca's parents. Her mother has adjusted to the new script by changing the subject. Her father asks me about filters in baseball and how to build a shelf that won't sag. He asks Rebecca if she's sleeping. He asks Hannah if she's reading anything good. He texted Claire on her move-in day a picture of the hammer he bought her. "For shelves," he wrote. "And harder things." The thing I keep learning is this: truth will come into your house one way or another. If you let it in through the front door, you can at least decide which room it sits in. If it breaks a window, you'll spend years sweeping up glass. We didn't open the door soon enough. Claire did. Hannah held it. On my 42nd birthday, we grilled in the backyard. It was small, just us, Claire, my brother and his wife. We ate too late and the mosquitoes took more than their share. Hannah lit sparklers and wrote her name in the air like a kid younger than 13, and I let myself believe backward for a minute. Rebecca handed me a cake with uneven frosting and said, "I'm trying," and I said, "Me too," and it was the truest thing we'd said all week. Claire cleaned up without asking, humming a song I finally recognized. It was from the sitcom she and Hannah used to watch when the house still felt like a laugh track might save it. After everyone went inside, I stood on the deck and watched the neighbor's porch light flick on and off with the motion sensor. It reminded me of something I couldn't place until I did: forgiveness. It's not a lamp you leave on. It's a light that notices movement and decides, again and again, to make the dark visible. We're moving, the three of us, slower than a plot and faster than comfort. Some days the motion is enough to trigger the light. Some days we stand still and let the dark be honest about what it is. Either way, tomorrow there will be school drop-off and invoices and a leaky P-trap and a counselor who asks the same question in a different tone and a teenager who needs poster board for a project she forgot to mention. There will be coffee. There will be a lasagna on Tuesday. There will be a key Claire still has, and uses. And there will be this house, which learned a new kind of quiet and didn't burn down, and the people inside it, who keep choosing each other in the ways that matter, even when the reasons are tired. It's not a grand ending. It's a workable middle. It's the best we have. Sometimes, that's the miracle. Thank you for listening my story. If you want more raw, real, and gripping stories like this one, subscribe to the AEN Stories channel. Your support keeps these stories alive.